You're listening to Nervous Breakdowns, a podcast where your questions about relationships, dating, personality, and mental health are answered by Gino Tramontelli, a nationally certified counselor with a master's degree in clinical and counseling psychology. Here's the man himself, Gino Tramontelli.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of Nervous Breakdowns, the podcast where we talk about all kinds of mental health issues. And in this episode, we're going to talk about substance abuse and recovery. And I have a pretty fun thing going on in this episode, and I have a guest. So my guest today is Rob G. He's going to talk to us about his experience with recovery. Hey, Rob.
Hey, how are you?
Good, man. So, I wanted to bring you on the show because Rob's a friend of mine. We've been friends through various online sources for a couple of years now, and we've had a lot of pretty cool conversations about recovery. So, Rob, I wanted to bring you on here so we could talk about your experiences. How you doing tonight?
Good. How are
Good.
you?
I'm good, man. I really appreciate you joining me. And so, why don't you start with telling us about your recovery? I mean, let's start with the basics. You're in recovery, right?
Yeah, I have 13 years.
All right, 13. So a pretty solid, long time recovery.
Yes.
Okay, and tell us. Why don't we start with how you started with drugs? So how old were you when you first picked up?
I was about 13 years old when I first started experimenting with alcohol and weed. It started getting worse. I was hanging out with the older kids when I was 14, and then it just blew up. Alcohol became my main thing, and I really just went to town.
Okay, so for you, drinking was the main issue.
Yeah, drinking was my main thing, and then it eventually, everything else it was always with drinking.
Okay, so did you ever start to dabble in other harder drugs as well?
Yeah, marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, acid, pretty much everything but heroin.
Okay, yeah, all right. So you were really in that life, I guess. So how long were you did you have a problem with the drinking?
Well, I started, like I said, when I was around 13, and I ended up going into rehab. My sobriety, from what I remember, is Halloween 2000. So I don't know how old I was when
Right.
13 was, but I think it was between a good 6 and 8 years of just heavy drinking and drugging and just stealing and everything.
Okay, so you were even getting to the point where you were committing crimes to support yourself?
Yeah, committing crimes to support myself, committing crimes just because, it was mostly the peer pressure. Everybody was doing it, and I just started doing it, and then realizing you could sell what you steal and get more drugs. So
Right. So at this point, were you selling things, or stealing things to sell for alcohol money or for other drugs?
for alcohol, the drugs was just, like I said, always there.
Right.
It was always like, all right, well, I'm stealing to get. I didn't have a job, so everything had to have been stolen, and the guys who used to get me the alcohol obviously were 21, and they were also making dealers.
Right. So okay. So tell me a little bit about, what do you, now that you've had some recovery time, and I know you've spent some time working on or trying to explore for yourself what the addictions was about. What do you make of why you picked up in the first place? I mean, do you think that? Go ahead.
From what I've been in heavy therapy, and from what I learned, I ended up going into a rehab when I was 20, and it was called a TC. It was a therapeutic community besides being a rehab. And what a therapeutic community is their whole intention is to break you down and build you back up to like a new person and all that, and to really dissect why you started. And I was adopted when I was 3 days old into a predominantly white. I'm Spanish. I'm Colombian, and I was adopted into a predominantly white, upper middle class neighborhood. So I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. I didn't feel like I was a part of anything, and that turned into low self-esteem, low confidence. I didn't think I was. I thought I was less than everybody else, so I ended up just drifting towards the kids that were up to no good because they really didn't see me, or in my eyes, didn't see me as this Spanish person. They saw me as a fellow user and a fellow thug, and
So you felt accepted by them.
I felt accepted by them. So, and that's pretty much from what And again, I was in the TC for let's say about a year before I ended up leaving. So it was a long-term facility, and and I'm still learning about all this stuff. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lifelong process. I think that you'll probably agree with me when I say that most people that are in recovery have to always be working on it. I mean, I don't think you're ever out of recovery, right?
well, I'm one of more of the I they always say in the like AA meetings and NA meetings that if you're not working on your recovery, you're working on your relapse.
Okay.
There's very few sayings from the rooms that I go by, but that one I really, I have to live by, and that doesn't necessarily mean I have to pick up the big book or do anything, but I have to do what's right, whether it be getting up from work or taking care of the kids or whatever. That's me working on me and staying sober, because if I relapse, get it. So
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. Definitely I think a lot of times people can trick themselves into relapsing because they think that they beat it somehow, and I don't personally believe that once you get to the level where you need to get clean, I don't think that you're ever not at risk for harming yourself.
but you never beat it. You never ever beat it. You're stuck with it for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not. It's up to you whether you want to stay sober or not. I in and out of the rooms and everywhere I go. I see people, I meet people, and it's always, well, I don't have a problem. I could, the usual. I could stop whenever I
Right.
want. I could do whatever. I could, it's not affecting me. But it is affecting you because one, you're eating donuts for dinner because you used all your money for whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Life isn't going well, but you don't see all that. So
Yeah. So Rob, tell me about was there a moment when you realized that you needed to get clean? Like, when did you realize that you were on a path that was going to take you bad places?
well, I knew for a while I was on a path, probably around 18, 17. 6 weeks after I got my license for the first time, at age 17, I crashed my new car into my neighbor's house, and I was so drunk that I ended up urinating on the side of their house after I hit the car. Ran across the street because I didn't think anybody would see me, and I hid in the bushes.
Wow.
That my car was totaled, another car was totaled, so obviously it was me. But I was so drunk that I didn't know. From that point on, I knew either, there was only one way that I was going to stop. Either I was going to die or I was going to end up in jail. So what happened was, it started going downhill. I dropped out of high school, senior year. I just started, like I said, stealing and hanging out with all the wrong people. And my parents finally said, that's it. You can't live here anymore. And they gave me $200, told me that I could live in a motor lodge, a really rundown motel.
Right.
And so I lived there. They gave me the $200, and within an hour, the $200 was gone, and all my friends were gone. Nobody wanted to come. Nobody was going to give me a ride anywhere. Nobody did anything for me. And I remember waking up that next morning with a full beard. My stomach was swollen because of all the garbage.
Mm-hmm.
I had throw up all over my face, and I had no idea what was what happened. And my mom put a card in for the rehab that I went to, which was called Discovery House. A card for Discovery House, and it said on the back, "Call this. They're waiting for your number." And that morning, I ended up calling, and they said, "We're waiting for you. 2 days. There's going to be a car," and I ended up going.
So, would you consider that your bottom?
Well, again, for me, I mean, you could call it a bottom, but my bottom is ultimately death.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's not really bottom.
Rob? Why don't you explain for somebody who might not know what I mean when I'm talking about a bottom, what that is in AA terms?
Well, a bottom basically is all you have nothing. You have nothing left. You're either homeless or you're in jail, or it's something. It's different for everybody, obviously, but it's for that individual person. You just have nothing left. You have no family, you have no friends, you have no money. Either you overdosed, or you got arrested, or you got kicked out, or anything that just really you wake up and you have a sense of, there is nothing that I can do to make this better. There's no lying to get out of it. There's no cheating, no stealing. You're beyond done.
Right, and it's also, I think, for the person, it's also the realization that all these things have been lost because of the addiction, right?
Oh, straight up. Yeah, it's a direct result of the whatever addiction it is. And again, it doesn't have to be drugs or alcohol. It can be anything that's affecting your life to where it's destroying your life.
Yeah, I mean, in my business, I come across people who are not ready to change yet, and who have nothing, just the way you described, but they still haven't turned that corner where they realize that they have nothing because they're, living their life for the drugs they use or the alcohol, and so they still aren't at their bottom, even though they have none of those things.
Right,
Yes.
right. And it's only a matter of time before they get a hot dose and they're in the hospital, or they get caught stealing and they're ending up doing time, like major time, or they do something stupid. I had a friend, God rest his soul, he ended up, he was a good guy. I grew up with him. My parents loved him. He got caught up in heroin. And this was after I got clean and I moved away. He got caught up in heroin, and he was sick. He was dope sick, and he ended up stealing a car. There was an old lady in the car, and he freaked out, told her to get out, and physically kicked her out. She ended up having a heart attack and dying. He ended up doing almost, I think it was 14 years, and got out, said he was all fine, everything was great, and relapsed and overdosed.
Wow. Yeah, you lose a lot of people to this addictions, man. It's really it's tragic.
Yeah, it is tragic, but you know what? If you're gonna get clean, you're gonna get clean. I feel bad for my friends who overdosed. I feel bad for anybody else who overdosed, but it's up to you whether you're gonna get clean or attempt to get clean, or go to a meeting, or reach out your hand and say, I need help. I don't care. It doesn't have to be about God. It doesn't have to be about anything. If you feel like it's going wrong, you lost your job, you can't drive, you're walking, you're wearing the same clothes, you're stinking, you're smelling like shit. Life becomes unmanageable,
Right.
And it just, that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah, man. So, Rob, tell me about your experience. I mean, you don't know your family history because you're adopted, right?
Right.
So you don't know if there's any genetic component for this for you because you don't know your biological parents.
Right. I think there probably was, because I am a highly addictive person. I get addicted to anything that makes me feel good, whether it be drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, food, sex, fucking video games. I mean, it doesn't matter. If it feels good, I'm going to do it until till I'm blue in the face. So I really think that I got my biological parents were, drugs or alcohol or something.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's probably a pretty safe conclusion, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
And then, a lot of times we link substance abuse addictions with traumatic experience. I know you mentioned that, like, your childhood, you never felt like you fit in, but did you ever have, like, a trauma? Did you ever have something bad happen to you as a kid?
No, I think that's what the trauma was. I think being so isolated and, I don't, it's tough because I was brought up in the rehab that, traumatic experiences, whether, people do go through traumatic experiences, but it's just an excuse to use. So something major happened and I end up using because of it. I just really wanted to use, regardless of what happened. So I think, me not fitting in was dramatic enough for me, and there was racism. There was a lot of garbage going on where I lived. It was predominantly white Jewish area. I
Yeah.
was Spanish, little 5 foot kid who, just never felt comfortable with my own skin. I always thought I was ugly, and when you're high, you don't give a shit what you look like or anything because everybody else is high, and that's just what it is.
Yeah, I mean, in mental health, sometimes the chronic, like, low-grade trauma, for example, just growing up in a rough neighborhood, we see this a lot with kids that grow up in the inner cities where they haven't had necessarily a bad thing happen to them. Like, they weren't molested or abused necessarily directly, but just kind of being exposed to the constant low-grade stress, like there being shootings in your neighborhood, or in your case, being picked on because you're different. It creates a disorder that can sometimes be hard to put your finger on. And sometimes they talk about, I attended a seminar about this new illness they were proposing for a new diagnosis called disorder of extreme stress NOS, which basically means that, like, just growing up in a shitty neighborhood. And I like to look at that when I look at people who are in recovery, because we see it a lot. They can't put their finger on a one-time thing when, they got their ass kicked or they were in a car accident or somebody touched them in a bad way. But you see this kind of, growing up with folks that are always fighting with each other, or the way you describe your childhood. And I wouldn't doubt if that was a big contributor.
Oh my God! Yeah, my parents fought a lot. I never thought it was because of me. I just thought, situation, that's what it was. But for me, it was definitely. I never felt comfortable, and because I didn't feel comfortable, I felt ugly. Because I didn't feel ugly, I felt just, I couldn't get a girl. Everybody else was getting girls, and I had to be drunk or high to get a girl. So always it was always me. It was always me the majority of it was me putting myself down. I was a piece of shit. I wasn't good enough for them because I was Spanish, because I was different. So it wasn't anything major. I was never abused, never sexually abused. I was never in a major car accident or lost somebody suddenly. It was just it was like being punched in the face over and over and over and over again.
Right.
Just that punch, and just wears you down and wears you down. And I'm still learning how to believe in myself and all that crap.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a few times about self-esteem. In fact, the self-esteem episode of this show that I did came from a question you asked me, and I know you've talked quite a lot of times about talking yourself out of feeling good. Like, if you have a good interaction with somebody, you're always second guessing it. You're always wondering what the real reason they're treating you nice is.
Oh my God, I still to this day do that. I never, because of me dealing with what I was dealing with, and the drugs and the dealers, I never trust. Everybody has a motive that was in my mind. All right, well, I did good, or somebody says something nice to me. You're not really saying something nice to me. There's a reason. You want something or something.
What's behind it?
What's the real reason? Why are you saying this to me? And before, they could say, oh, no, or anything like that, I'm telling them to go fuck themselves. So they have a reason to not like me, So
Right.
it's much easier for somebody to hate you than for it is somebody to like you. I can
Right.
easily tell you to go fuck yourself and you hate me, rather than have to, in my mind, and again, I'm still learning, I'm not cured by any means, have to put on this facade like oh yeah, what you said was funny. Or what you're doing was great. Well, I don't give a shit.
I'm saying, hey, man, are you being attacked by something right now?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that.
Nah, man, this is podcasting, man. I bet you this will be the best part of the show for some people.
All right.
You still there?
Yeah.
All right, man. So okay, so definitely you would have issues with people, and you would wonder, why they were treating you nice, and before you know it, you're kind of making your own prophecy come true by being nasty.
Right, and I still do that to this day.
Right. So in general, you went through this whole process of a year-long kind of intensive therapy. You put your finger on some of the root causes of why you picked up in the first place, and some of the things that maintain your addiction. And how do you maintain it now? I mean, how do you maintain your sobriety? What keeps you clean?
Work keeps me clean. My kids keep me clean. I go to meetings at least 3 times. Well, now, I mean, it's tough, but it's usually between once or twice a week. I go to a meeting, I get a ride, or I have somebody pick me up to get that. I need that refill, I guess. I need to remember where they always say to keep it green. I need to remember where I came from. So
Right.
I always try to stay connected as best as I can. I mean, I'm sure I could be doing more. People always say I should be helping others, going to meetings 4 or 5 times a week. But my schedule and the fact that I have kids now, I can't.
Yeah, no, I have to say, one of the things that impressed me as we kind of set up for this show and in the lead up to this was your enthusiasm about doing this so that other people could hear your experience and maybe benefit from it. So it definitely seems like you're committed to not just to helping yourself, but to trying to help other people as well, which is really cool.
Well, yeah, I was never like that. I mean, if you met me one-on-one, I was always I was nice to your face, but I didn't care about you. I'd go to a meeting and sit in a circle or whatever, and somebody would talk, and I'd straight look at them and say, I just don't care about you. I got my own problem.
Right.
You're here, you're telling me you got 30 days clean and everything is beautiful. I got 13 years clean and I have an ex-wife and I'm fighting and this and I don't give a shit. But, I sit back or I'm laying in bed at night with the TV off. I'm thinking, you know what? Somebody could benefit from my 13 years. Somebody can listen. And, people listening to this can click the off button and say, that guy's full of shit. But if it's one person, to go to a meeting for one day, then it helps. Hey, it keeps me sober. So, whatever.
So what's the difference between the version of you that's sitting in the group and not giving a shit about somebody else and the version of you that's sitting in your bed at night and saying, maybe I should use my time to help somebody else? How do you turn the corner from one version of you to the other?
I think because I'm so used to being that 2 different people. I still am. I still go. I work at an electronics store. Half the customers that come in, I don't give a shit about. And it's like that fake facade. I need to keep up that wall. You can't really see how I'm feeling because the minute you see how I'm truly feeling, I'm susceptible to get hurt. So when I'm in public or at work or with certain people or whatever, that wall goes immediately up and I'm quote unquote don't give a shit about you. When I'm laying in bed and the lights are out and I'm reflecting on the day or whatever, there's nobody there to judge and there's nobody there that I need the wall up. So it's just me. So it's all right, well, you know what, I need to get that help. And I need to keep that in my head. Like you asked me to do this thing. First response was, I'd rather watch TV.
Right.
Laid in bed, and I'm like, you know what, I gotta do this. So I ended up doing, talking to you and saw a commercial on TV for, I think it was drugfreeamerica.org, where you could write your story and other people could read it and get help. I'm going to end up doing that when we get off here, so while I keep it fresh in my head. Because,
yeah, definitely, man. Now,
the things that I want to do.
Another thing that we talked about at length is that you also get mental health treatment, right?
Yeah, I'm on. Well, when I went into rehab, it was known, or I shouldn't. I was severely depressed. I was, uh, I guess you would say, like, I don't remember what it was, like, almost bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on medication for that now. I'm on heavy duty medication. Well, I don't know if you would consider it heavy duty. Um, so there is, from what I've learned, there is a chemical imbalance because of everything that I've done that I can't control. Either I'm severely depressed, and I don't want to get out of bed, or I'll even call out of work, um, or it became a point where I didn't think anybody loved me, and everybody hated me if I wasn't on it, on the medication. So,
Right.
so and I see I saw a therapist. I think it was twice a week for a while, especially after my divorce or separation.
So, do you think that the mental health, being stable with your mood, is an essential part of your sobriety?
Oh my God, yeah, it is essential. If I'm not on my medication, for one, my ex-wife knows it. If
Uh-huh.
I'm not on it for a while, you will. It's almost like fucking. I turn into the Hulk, but not all angry. I get severely depressed, like severely, and the end result is I'll use because I just won't give a shit anymore.
Right. So
So
you pick up because you just stop caring.
I just don't give a shit about anything. I'll let dog runs out of the house. I won't even bother,
Right.
running after it. I'd rather just lay in bed and watch TV. I mean, that's what it would come down to. But then I'd end up drinking or drugging or both and dying.
Yeah, man, it's an amazing thing. Our brains we obviously experience our world through our brains. I mean, we use our eyes and ears and our thoughts, but it all gets filtered through our brain chemistry. And they can isolate parts of the brains that are responsible for certain types of thoughts. And when you're depressed, the parts of your brain that are responsible for kind of looking into the future and seeing positive outcomes, they don't function right. And so a depressed person looks at their future and they only can see negative outcomes. And it's real easy to get hopeless when you're that way.
It really, for me, it was extreme hopeless. Um, I went through a separation in sobriety, and I wasn't on medication. I stopped taking everything, and I was on the verge of suicide. It was that. I mean, you could do to say that that was a traumatic experience while I was in sobriety.
Right. Now,
I just,
Rob, let's back up. Can we talk a little bit about the details of your separation? I mean, you were also going through some medical issues at the time, right?
yeah, when I had cancer. I had testicular cancer, and from the cancer, oh, actually, I used to work for um, cable company, and I ended up getting hurt. Went to the doctor. The doctor said check to make sure you don't have a hernia. Um, that night I checked and I felt like a pain sensation. Went back to the doctor. He said, "Well, let's get an ultrasound to make sure everything is good." They found something. Ended up being testicular cancer. Within a week, I was in surgery. Um, from there, my immune system, I guess, I dropped, or was already dropped. I don't know. So I ended up getting or had rheumatoid arthritis. So I was dealing with all this stuff. I had an inflamed liver. I have scar tissue all over my liver because of the drinking and drugging, and that put me in severely depressed. And I wasn't taking any meds for that, for being depressed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I was being extremely unloving to the ex-wife. I didn't give a shit about her. Um, Yelling at the kids. This is all in sobriety.
Right.
And finally, she said we could do counseling. I need you to change. Blah blah blah. And I just didn't. I didn't give a shit. I didn't care. I just didn't care. One day we got into a little bit of a fight. She said I'm leaving and left and never came back. And it was probably one of the worst times of my life. Uh, That was probably 5 years ago, and I'm 4 years ago, and I'm still trying to get over it. I mean, not trying. It's much better now.
Right.
It's a piece of you. We had 2 kids together. We did sobriety together. For me, she helped me, and it was borderline. Oh my! It was just something I never want to experience ever again.
So now, how do you go through that and maintain your sobriety? What was the thing you held on to stay clean?
Well, the thing was, is I had to realize that, there was plenty of times I didn't want to. I just wanted to get fucked up and didn't care what the end result was. But even after everything, I knew that if I got drunk or if I did drugs, I just wouldn't lose a wife. I would lose my family again. I would lose ever seeing my kids. I would lose ever talking to her again. Everything would be over. Not just losing my wife. So I couldn't do it.
Right.
There was no option.
So you kept it in perspective, it sounds like. I mean, you reminded yourself that even though you lost your wife, you still had lots of good things in your life that you didn't want to lose.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't even. It was that. I also just. I felt like after all I've been through, to just go back to drinking and drugging over a girl was like. It just didn't seem right. It just didn't. It was like, you're a baby if you do that,
right,
over a girl. So I mean, it hurt like hell. Lost weight, didn't sleep, didn't eat. Sometimes I still think about it, but I mean, I'm here now. I'm still. She was like awesome. So I'm still dealing with it, and at least I know I can't for today. I can't drink. I can't do drugs because not only am I going to lose her even more, I lose my kids, I lose my house, I lose my job, I lose everything.
Right.
So it's just not an option.
Yeah, man. That's one of the things that people in new recovery struggle with the most is there's this kind of rule of thumb in mental health where the age when somebody starts to pick up and use is kind of the age when they stop developing. So if you pick up at 16, and then you get clean at 36, at 30 you're going to be a 36-year-old with the emotional age of a 16-year-old.
Easily. I mean, you know me. I talk a lot. I say a lot of stupid shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got clean at 20, or I started using at 13. I'm 34 now. I would say I still got something with the mind of a child. I still do childish shit.
Yeah.
I need a lot of grown-ups. You still need a lot of help. You need help your whole life.
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely. Yeah, the way I like to talk about it is that, part of people come to therapy all the time. They talk about they want to develop coping skills. And the way I see it is that you develop coping skills by feeling things, right? So if you're bored, you have to develop a coping skill for dealing with boredom. Or if you're sad, you have to develop a coping skill for dealing with sadness. And sometimes that coping skill is just reminding yourself that it won't be forever. If I'm sad today, sometimes I just have to say, okay, well, I'm sad now, and later I won't be sad, right?
Exactly.
Right. So sometimes my coping skill is just knowing that, right? And what happens is when people start to use at an early age, the drug becomes all their coping skills. So they're bored, they get stoned. They're sad, they get stoned. They're nervous, they get stoned. They're happy, they get stoned. So now they become an adult, like not a child anymore. They become an adult. They get clean. They got big boy problems, right? Like they got bills to pay and a wife that they have been neglecting, and et cetera, et cetera. And they have no tools in the toolbox to handle these bad feelings, and the relapses happen super quick. The first time something rough comes up, boom, they relapse. And it's the biggest thing that I try to share with my clients that are newly in recovery is that, look, you're going to start to experience some stuff that you haven't been experiencing, and you got to be prepared for it.
If that, yeah, I agree to an extent. My grandmother always used to tell me as we were growing up, don't worry, Rob, this too shall pass.
Right.
No matter what happens, you're going to get over it. But somebody new in recovery, old in recovery, or still using, you're choosing to use. The cause is just an excuse. Your girl left you, your dog died, you got a bad grade. That's the excuse to use. You have that. Life sucks because you're using.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to do it because you got a bad grade, it just so happens you got a bad grade and you're just using because of it. You want to use. If you want to get clean, you're going to. If life becomes that unmanageable for you, you're going to try to get clean. I don't like to hear, oh, I relapsed because fucking my dog died.
Right.
I relapsed because my girl left. No, you relapsed because you wanted to relapse, first of all, so I don't want to hear it. Or you're doing this because you chose to put the needle in your arm. You chose to do whatever.
Right. You got to take the responsibility, for sure.
Just do it. I got, every day, 14 years, 13 years clean. If I lose my job, or I could have used over my ex, or, the ex leaving. No, I chose to use. Simple.
Right. So, Rob, I wanted to spend some time today talking about some of the things. So, let me give some background. There is like this arbitrary and there's a line that's drawn in between mental health and addictions that in my mind doesn't make a lot of sense. So, in other words, somebody goes to mental health treatment in this place here, and they go to addictions treatment in that place over there, and many times there's about a 50% overlap between the two. So, for example, about half the people that have a drug problem also have a mental illness, and about half the people that have a mental illness also have a drug problem. And so when you have that kind of overlap, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me that there's, this line in the sand between mental health. I almost feel like you should just be able to go in one place and get it all, right? So from time to time we go to these seminars, and there's a movement away from the idea that somebody has to hit a bottom to get clean. I went to this seminar where the guy was talking about taking people that are not even ready for recovery. They're what they call pre-contemplating. Their parents are referring them to this person, and the person doesn't think they have a problem. They don't really want to get clean, and they move them into recovery by helping them focus on goals. So if the person wants to get a job, you help them focus on the job, and if remind them that, hey, you got to give clean urines for this job. So maybe if you want this job, you should be being sober. Do you think that the bottom is an important part of getting clean, or do you think that somebody could get into sobriety in different ways?
I think somebody could get into sobriety a couple different ways, but I think having a bottom or experiencing a bottom is the most important thing. I hear in the rooms all the time, whatever experiences, I hit my bottom, and now I'm here. You have to experience what complete shit your life is in order to say, I got nowhere else to go but to stay clean. My kids saw me drunk or whatever. I think to take somebody who doesn't even really want to get clean and say, in order for you to get this job, you got to, piss clean. He's going to find a way to either piss clean by, fucking with the system, or piss clean and then 2 months later start doing drugs. You have to want it. You have to want to dig out from the crap that you got yourself in.
Yeah, this guy that gave the seminar, his name escapes me right now, but he's kind of a big shot in addictions treatment. And he has this, really intensive program that he set up where they do, essentially they handhold throughout the recovery process, and they get people these jobs. He goes out into the community and finds employers that are willing to hire people that are, maybe a little iffy in their recovery or not even fully recovered. And he's reporting, or he's even publishing papers saying that he's getting these really good outcomes. And I'm sure he is. I don't think that he's falsifying his outcomes, but I think that his method is not realistic for the majority of people. I don't think that sobriety can stick if you do it in a bubble. I think you got to get sober in your life. And so that was the issue that I had with what he was presenting.
I don't, he could do all the papers he wants. Let me see those people in a year. I bet you that number drops. You can't, holding your hand to get. My hand was. I mean, from TCs, therapeutic communities, they do not hold your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, it was pure hell, and your hand was not held. Either you were going to get clean, or you were going to do what they told you to do, and or you were just going to die. It was very simple. It was very cut and dry. You don't follow our rules. You don't do what we tell you to do. And it wasn't religious. It wasn't anything like that. It was heavy therapy, therapeutic community. You do something wrong, you got to sit in the corner. If you don't do it, you're going to relapse. And it's just, you may not relapse in the first week or the first month. It could take a year. It could take 2 years. You're going to relapse. So holding your hand, I think that's all bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it struck me as odd, but I also want to be open to new methods of helping clients. So if this guy's saying that he's getting good outcomes and he can demonstrate that the outcome sticks, like what you said, if a year from now all his people aren't back, into their habit, then, maybe it's a better way. Again, I try to be as open-minded as possible, but it just definitely, my first reaction was definitely, this doesn't seem like something that can be generalized. I think you're doing some cool stuff and looking at it in a different way, but it's not something that the average person can do. So the other question I wanted to talk to you about was, I get a lot of pushback when I try to refer people to NA and AA, particularly with atheism's on the rise, and so a lot of my clients are coming in, my college kids. And they're like, look, I don't believe in God, and I'm not going to go to a place where they shove God down your throat, with all the talk of the higher power and such. What's your take on that? Is religiosity an important part of recovering?
No, not at all. And if they're saying that to you, they just don't want to go. When I was in TC, it was told to me, you're going to AA, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, your higher power. If you're not religious, your higher power is not God. It's simple.
Right.
They told me, when you start to get clean, when I was going through my first month and a half, the fucking doorknob could be your higher power. It's something that you look at. My dog could be my higher power. If I believe in it, and it's going to help me get clean. If I'm in a rough spot, picturing my dog, how cute he is and whatever, it doesn't have to be God, If it was religious and it was God and they shoved it down, I mean, granted, some meetings will try it. I shut off. I would have relapsed 14 years ago. Don't shove God down my throat. I'm going to get clean. I'm coming to meetings. They got the prayer at the end, which is fine and all that stuff. And if somebody's talking about God, whatever. If it works for them, it works for them. For me, my higher power now is whatever I feel at the moment, or my kids. Today I'm going to stay clean because I know if I don't see my kids, or whatever. If somebody says I'm going, I'm not going because they're going to shove God down my throat. Either pick another meeting, or you're just bullshitting the system and you don't want to get clean. It's very simple.
Right. So I mean, if I was going to summarize a lot of your points, I mean, it's basically you feel like anything, it's all excuses, right? If you're not getting clean, then you're not getting clean. If you're either clean or you're not, right?
Right. Cool. I mean, yeah. I mean, you have to. It's not like you're going to get clean or not. You have to ask for help.
Right.
That's the thing. If you get help, if you want it, or if you think, not that you want it, but if life is becoming unmanageable, you need to ask somebody for help. If you're not willing to reach out your hand and say, I need help, you're going to die.
Do you think it's possible for somebody to get clean off, like to have a problem with one drug and still be able to use other drugs recreationally?
Me personally, not a chance. I hear it all day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink, but I could smoke. I don't smoke anymore. Or people who I was in the rooms with or rehab with. No, I was in rehab and I drank, but I smoke weed every now and again. I'm fine. It won't affect me. A year later, it's gonna affect you. You can't if you have an addictive personality. And when I speak for myself, I cannot smoke. I cannot drink. I can't smoke and not drink. I can't drink and not smoke. It just doesn't work. And if it works, you're fucking Superman because it does not work for me.
Right. So for you, I mean, it's only a matter of time. It's a time bomb.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And again, yeah, I can only speak for myself, but and from what I've seen, people saying, ex heroin addicts, I'm not putting it in my arm. I'm just smoking. I'm just smoking weed every now and then. It's only a matter of time. I've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah. How about nicotine?
Well, I think you could smoke. I smoked for. Well, I'm still trying to quit smoking.
Mm.
Oh, that's a vice that sucks. Uh, but in my head, it's better than putting something in your arm. It's better than fucking drinking yourself silly. It's a bad habit. You stink. It's expensive, but it's better than getting a DUI, third DUI, or having to go to jail again and all that shit. So.
Yeah, but in your experience, smoking cigarettes isn't likely to trigger a relapse, so it's not the same thing.
In my experience, no.
Okay, yeah, because I've been to some AA meetings, just to attend them and to observe, and especially before, you couldn't smoke anywhere. I mean, some of those rooms were smoky as hell. People were just in there, and it's almost like they replaced one addiction and intensified the other. Well, I would often be amused by the people who were in recovery and became like Jesus freaks, and like the spirituality became almost like their new addiction. They
well, that's right.
Yeah, they latched into it. It was an interesting experience. I mean, clearly, given a choice between being addicted to something that's ruining your life and something that's keeping you clean, definitely be addicted to the thing that's making you clean, right? But it had the same feel, man. It was clear that it was just replacing one thing with another.
Oh yeah, and we learned that. I mean, if you're, and it's usually the guys who are 30 days clean. Oh God, I found God. God is great. God is beautiful. Oh man, well, how much time you got? I got 30 days. Oh,
yeah.
Please. Come on.
The pink cloud phase, they call that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. It's been a while since I did the AA stuff. So, all right, man. Well, listen, I appreciate your time, Rob. I learned a lot. I really appreciate you being so open and forthcoming. Let me leave you with one question. If you had to tell somebody one essential thing, what would be the most important thing they need to know about recovery?
That recovery is there if you want it. Don't feel like you have no option. There's always an option to get clean, and there's always a hand willing to lift you up, to pick you up. You're gonna have to do the work, but you can get clean. You can repair.
Awesome, man. Good, hopeful message. I appreciate that. Thank you again. This has been a really interesting conversation. I think a lot of people will benefit from it. To those of you listening, if you're struggling with addiction or you need some help with your mental health, I use this website frequently, and I share it also at samhsa.gov. It's the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, samhsa.gov. You can go on there and get addictions resources, mental health resources. Please use it. If you need help, go get it. As Rob said, the recovery is there for you. All you have to do is put in the work, and you can have it. Rob, is there anything you want to plug, man?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay. So for those of you who, if you have any response to this podcast, if you have any questions you want to ask me, I'd be happy to pass them along. Maybe we'll do this again one day, Rob. What do you think?
Yeah, sure.
All right. So my email account is breakdownswithg@gmail.com, or you can follow me at Twitter at breakdownswithg. I have my Tumblr page, breakdownswithg.tumblr.com. And, of course, subscribe to this thing on iTunes or Stitcher or my YouTube channel. like it, share it. If you know somebody that has a trouble with addiction, maybe they can benefit from this thing. So please share it with them. And
yep, hit me up. If you have questions or you need help with something, I can always help too.
Okay. Did you hit you up? What on what? You cracked out a little bit.
You can email me at grzzer2@gmail.com. Any questions, concerns, or you just want to bullshit out of here.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for listening, guys.